Welcome to the Sages of Industry podcast with your host, Lynne Brodie. With 30 plus years of Fortune 20 experience, Lynne specializes in strategic activation flow for cognitive peak potential. Each episode features conversations with leaders who have built products and services that simultaneously serve clients, engage employees, and solve real-world problems. Will you be the next global change maker? Subscribe for the latest episodes, and don't miss Lynne's monthly solo series, The Ripple Effect, designed to activate your flow zone for imagination, innovation, and measurable impact. Now let's join Lynne and today's extraordinary guest.
Hi, I'm Lynne Brodie, and welcome to the Sages of Industry podcast. And I'm talking with leaders that bring outstanding innovations to the world. While you're listening, think of ways you too can bring business for world good. Today's guest is Dr. Ginny Whitelaw. She has such a huge background. I'm so excited to have her on the show. Dr. Ginny Whitelaw is an 86th generation Rinzai Zen master and founder of the Institute for Zen Leadership. With more than 30 years developing whole leaders, she's the author of Resonate and the Zen Leader and co-developer of FEBI, FEBI, a personality assessment that links mind and body and behaviors. Formerly deputy manager for integrating NASA's space station program, she has a doctorate in biophysics, degrees in physics and philosophy, and a 5th degree black belt in Aikido. She is a regular contributor to Forbes.com in leadership strategy. Welcome, Ginny, to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I like to start with a question in asking people, how did you choose this idea, creation, invention, or did it choose you?
When I was a leader at NASA, I was taking leadership classes, and I was also leading people on the space station program. I was in charge of integrating the space station program back in its design phase. And I was really intrigued by the leadership trainings, but I noticed that they all were cognitive behavioral only. In other words, I stopped at the neck. And by this time in my life, I had been training in martial arts and Zen for well more than a decade, and I knew how important the body was in behaviors, in leadership, in where the power is, where the energy is. So I was really struck by how it was left out of leadership training, and it started dawning on me that maybe this was my work to do. Up to that point, I'd been a technical person, a scientist by training, and had worked at Bell Labs and then at NASA. And yet somehow leadership itself fascinated me. And the idea of developing leaders' mind and body as one felt very compelling. So it wouldn't let me go. I wanted to write a book and asked NASA for a leave of absence to finish my book. And this is way back in 1990s. And they miraculously granted it, but the night before I was to start, the center director at the Johnson Space Center offered me a huge promotion that I either had to start on Monday or go write my book. So when I did the most unexpected thing I'd ever done in my life up to that point, and I left NASA and wrote my book. So
it was definitely a calling for sure. And when we get that calling inside, we just know that the timing is right, and we just know that we kind of have no choice but to follow it. It's our inner energy, our inner Zen, our inner soul is calling for us to reach out and to fulfill our purpose and by stepping into our personal power and really leading that and using that in ways in our own unique way and kind of how we're packaged as an individual to bring forth. So what did you hope that the book and the leadership would bring to the marketplace and humanity?
A deeper connection within people. getting out of the head and into a kind of coherence between what I call head, heart, and hara. Hara is the vital center in the lower abdomen that is left out quite often. Often people are very cut off from that. But when we get all three centers working coherently, that quality is able to be us at full strength and bring a kind of leadership into the world that cares for the bigger picture and where the leadership talk matches the walk. In other words, we are coherent. We have integrity in ourselves.
Okay. And so of the things, because I mean, you've been doing this for many, many years, decades, I don't want to say, but in terms of, working with leaders at your Zen Leadership Institute. And so in working with these different leaders, because there's so many from so many different areas, what kind of world problems have they, in working with you and involving themselves, basically the ripple effect in you working with them? How did that ripple out, and how did that solve world problems?
Yeah, how does that ripple out and solve world problems? When we look at our world today, it's kind of a mess. I mean, we're at a rupture point in civilization, and there's so many tipping points of change coming together at the same time that it's hard to see how it fixes. There's not a simple way to just fix crises that are interwoven with each other. And yet that's not to say leaders can't make a positive difference. So part of what we work on with Zen Leadership is how this coherence that I've talked about can seed what Ilya Prigogine, a great chemist from the time when I was in graduate school, he called them islands of coherence, which is what helps lift out of a sea of chaos a higher level consciousness, a higher level order. So it becomes a way that people can create a better world around them. So not solving world problems like I'm somehow going to turn back the climate crisis, or I'm somehow going to turn back the march of AI. Those things are going to play out. But how do I create in my world better connection? How can we create what's waiting to be born in all this crisis? So some of the things that I've seen among leaders I'm working with is how for example, physicians, there's a lot of burnout in the healthcare area, as you may know, because the suffering of the culture really shows up in the healthcare system for sure, both the sickness of the patients and the pressures on the finances and all those things, productivity measures. And people went into this field because they wanted to be healers. It helps them offer a kind of connected care that actually brings about healing through the conversations itself. It's helping them evolve new models of community health where they can create healing circles rather than just a doctor knows best model. All of these things have happened from physicians who have attended our programs. So that's not only helping them in reconnecting with purpose, it also addresses the burnout issues. It also gives them physical practices that help them be calm in this storm, calm at the eye of a storm, so they can be in a mess without getting messed up. That quality is an example of how then leaders are able to create a better world around them.
That is a great example, and exactly what I was asking in terms of the different types of clients that you work with and how the things that we don't realize that, they might have come to you for one thing, but they didn't realize how many parts it was going to touch, how it was and the parts that it touched, how many more people that it touched, that they were going to work with around the world, and that other people was going to go out and share what they learned and in helping that type of thing. So there's many world problems that you're actually solving. Some take or keep track of that, and in the different areas in analytics in terms of impact in different areas, and some do not. I don't know if you is that something that you track in your business on the impact?
We track how it helps people's lives, but I wouldn't say we don't track like how many patients they helped. We have estimates of that just from the field, but
Sure.
but what we hear are their stories. And so it's, I would say, not as analytical as it is heartfelt. We're hearing their stories of impact, and
Mhm.
and they mean something. They touch hearts.
When you and I talked before this, you talked about how energy adds up, and kind of the and about the Tacoma Bridge and becoming a shifter, and not the shifted, and the four ways of resonating: the driver, the organizer. If you could talk a little bit about that, that would be very interesting, I think, to the listeners.
Yeah, well, what we're talking about is resonance. Resonance, which is the mechanism by which energy is changing form all the time. And to resonate is to vibrate with. And the reason it's such a simple physics concept. It's a universal principle, not a belief system. It's not if you want to believe in resonance or not. It's happening. And so when waves come together, things are going to happen if they're in roughly the range where they can move with each other. And not everything resonates with everything else. In other words, there's a specificity to resonance, which is part of what creates the vast forms of our world. White light, the sunshine that's shining on us is picked up by the different parts of your room and my room differently. And that's why we get a world in full colors. Certain frequencies are reflected, certain are absorbed. And that principle of vibrating with, taking energies you can use, reflecting the rest, that principle goes from the minor scale all the way up to the major scales. It's a universal way of understanding energy, which is very useful in leadership because that's what we're doing. In a way, we're sensing we're sensing in the energy fields around us what's ready to happen and how we can let it change us in ways that we bring it into form. That's kind of a way that leaders are creating a future. Now, to do that, we're bringing it through our form, the form of a human body. And in our human body, our nervous system has 4 large-scale patterns for orchestrating how we move in the world. You see me moving my hands now, but to even make these simple movements, I need opposing muscle groups that need to figure out who goes first. It's so simple. But that principle, to orchestrate a complex body, there are 4 large-scale patterns. And as you mentioned, we gave them names that resemble their leadership function or the way they show up as modes of leadership, which is driver, which is very intense and make things happen and get it done now, or organizer, which is very process-oriented and stepwise and has a place for everything and everything in its place, or the collaborator, which is more rhythmic and can go with the flow and find its way around obstacles and is great at connecting people. Or the expansive visionary, which is a big picture thinker, a very strategic thinker, and can sense patterns ready to happen. So these 4 patterns can work together in a very harmonious system, from ideation through giving an idea form, to getting other people playing with me to get this to happen, to driving a result and measuring the outcomes. So the 4 patterns can work very, very well together. Now we have preferences, you and I, just like we have handedness. And so this FEBI instrument that you mentioned in my introduction is a way to measure those preferences, so we have clarity around what's our go-to, what's our go-to energies, and we can easily access or cultivate any pattern that we may need more of in our leadership role.
Wonderful. That's really interesting. So, listeners, as you're listening, do you know which you are? Are you the driver, the organizer, the collaborator, the visionary on your team? Can you pick out who the others are on the teams that you work with? Why do you like working with them? How do they help you in the interaction and the energy with you in building out what you're looking to do? These are the things that I want you to think about as you're listening, how you can move forward in the world and influence others as well. What would you say, like, who do you serve? What are your, we talked a little bit about that, but who are your typical clients, the number of countries that you're in, and where you serve out of? Is it only your home base, or I know you do traveling quite a bit to do this. So if you could explain a little to people in case, as they move forward, they want to look up your website and connect with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we serve leaders at all levels, we say, from CEOs, I mentioned healthcare professionals, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, even people who don't consider themselves leaders but want to make a positive difference in the world. It's oftentimes people think of leadership as a certain position in an organization chart, but that's not our definition at all. We say leadership is an expression of the authentic self that creates wonderful value. That's our goal in Zen leadership, is how people can know that self beyond the ego. And that's where it really goes into really a universal truth for humans, but something that's out of the ordinary. That's what sets it apart. It becomes a practice. And that, what we find is that people, we are following the resonance, to go back to what I was talking about earlier, in how this has grown. So we serve people all over the world. We started out small, just a dozen people at our Zen Training Center in Wisconsin at the Spring Green Dojo. But some people there wanted to bring it to the UK, and so we went to the UK. And then some people there wanted to bring it to Vietnam, so we went to Vietnam. And then COVID hit, and everyone quit traveling, so we took it online. And we've continued to teach online and been delighted by how much of the program, how much of the physicality of the training still comes across even in this kind of an online environment. A group of people there have decided they really want to launch this in a big way, and the leaders in Vietnam seem to be on fire with Zen leadership. So it's marvelous to see.
Oh, wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
That's really great. That's so nice. Um, and if what you provide resonates with them, how can they contact you or your organization to get started with you?
A generous question. Zenleader.global. It's very simple. Zenleader.global is our website, and there they'll see how describes our programs, also how they can get started. It's very easy to get started. Some people like to start with learning about those energy patterns you and I were talking about earlier and discovering themselves in those patterns. Other people like to jump into the Zen Leader program, which is and start working with these reframes, or flips we call them, that turn leadership on its head and help people move from kind of barely hanging on or coping to being able to lead transformation.
Wonderful. And you'll see at the bottom of the page the Zen Leadership website, as well as all the social media ways to be able to connect as well. This has been a fascinating conversation with how you started out at NASA, and NASA led you into leadership, and then into writing a book, and then into Zen, and then into starting the Zen Leadership Institute. And so I really want to thank you for having you on the show today. And, this is just one of the extraordinary guests that I've curated to come on for people to listen to. So, as I said in the beginning, while you're listening, think of ways that you can impact the world and influence the world. And so I want to thank you for listening to our extraordinary guest. If you want to tap into your genius zone and need help doing so, you can go to my website, lynnebrodie.com. It's LYNNEBRODIE.com to get my contact information. I'm known for activating in you a new model of leadership. Please subscribe, like, and share with others. And listen to my monthly solo series, The Ripple Effect, designed to activate your personal power out into the world. Ginny, thank you very much for joining. And everyone, I look forward to you on the next version of Sages of Industry.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sages of Industry podcast with Lynne Brodie. If this episode sparked new thinking, take one action today. Identify a single opportunity within your business to better serve clients, engage your team, and create measurable impact. Then move it forward. For more conversations with leaders building businesses for world good, subscribe and share this episode with a colleague or peer. And if you're ready to accelerate performance through strategic activation flow for yourself or your team, connect with Lynne to start the conversation. Until next time, lead, build, and execute with impact.